After a long wait relative to Starship's past launch cadence, on May 22, 2026, SpaceX launched the first Starship V3 variant. Here we saw, in a lot of ways, practically a brand new rocket, with upgraded engines, a hot stage ring, grid fins, internal design and more, not to mention the new pad and infrastructure supporting the launch. With all these changes, the flight had a number of significant differences from any Starship launch in the past. Here I'll go more in depth into how the vehicle performed, the differences from past variants, the overall flight profile and more. With the vehicle filled with propellant and the weather clear, Starship received the go for launch on May 21, 2026. That initial attempt was scrubbed due to a hydraulic pin on one of the launch arms not retracting. Overnight, teams worked to fix it, which gave SpaceX the opportunity to launch the following day, May 22nd. There was a short hold at T-40 seconds, but it was soon reset and the clock continued counting down. As it hit T-17 seconds, the new flame diverter activated, and soon after, water from the water deluge system started to come out. In the final seconds, all 33 Raptor 3 engines ignited and the vehicle lifted off. Immediately, you could tell that this liftoff and initial acceleration past the launch tower were noticeably faster than past flights. The provided engine graphic showed that all 33 of the new engines were firing as intended. Views from the ground also confirmed this, with each of the engines visible. By T+54 seconds, Mission Control called out that the vehicle had already reached max Q, or the moment of peak mechanical stress on the rocket. For reference, on the last launch, Flight 11, it took Starship and its Raptor V2 engines until T+1 minute and 2 seconds to reach the same milestone, or around 8 seconds slower. From here, it continued to accelerate and gain altitude. During its ascent, at T+1 minute and 42 seconds, one of the Raptor engines on the outer ring of the booster went out. While not ideal, the booster has engine-out capability and can continue its mission with a missing engine. At T+2 minutes and 22 seconds, it was MECO, main engine cutoff, as Super Heavy shut down all but 5 of its engines. Seconds later, the upper stage, while still attached to the booster, ignited its engines as part of hot staging. Unlike past launches, the hot stage ring is now fixed and also much more open. The upper stage separated and the booster flipped. However, there were issues igniting its engines. In past launches, SpaceX had lit 13 of the booster's engines as part of the boost back burn. But in this case, they mentioned multiple times before flight that they intended to light all 33. If you look at the engine graphic, which is a bit ahead of the live camera feed, you can see nearly all the engines light for just about a second. It looks like it wanted to start with all 13 center engines and staggered engines on the outer ring. However, one of the engines on the center ring is missing, and nearly all the engines go out soon after startup. There's a few seconds where 5 of the outer ring engines fire at the same time as 5 center ring engines before they shut off as well. When the booster flips, we also get a few frames showing the actual engines attempting to light. It looks like the center ring engines along with some of the outer ring are lit before going out. There's an extended fire of just about 5 engines before the boost back burn is shut down early. For reference, the boost back burn was meant to last around 1 minute and use significantly more engines. While that was happening, the upper stage had ignited its 6 Raptor engines without issue and began its burn. That was until T+3 minutes and 2 seconds, when the engine graphic at the bottom right showed one of the vacuum Raptor, RVAC, engines going out. Then a few seconds later, a very large flash of light can be seen from the engine bay thanks to one of the onboard cameras. It seems that the telemetry was just ahead of the live views. In reality, this flash likely was the RVAC engine going out, but it just wasn't synced with the telemetry. Similar to the booster, the upper stage has engine-out capability, so it continued to fire its remaining 5 engines. Onboard booster cameras showed it flying back toward the surface, rolling in each direction. A new booster onboard camera showed the bottom of the stage and some of the exposed outer ring V3 engines. As the booster flew through the clouds, it prepared for engine startup. At T+6 minutes and 12 seconds, we saw flashes of light as the booster attempted to relight its engines before the feed cut as it impacted the surface. Soon after, telemetry popped up and showed only one of the Raptor engines had lit. Similar to the boost back burn, it seems the engines unsuccessfully relit and the booster impacted the water at around 1,400 km/h. The official flight profile listed that the booster was supposed to splash down at T plus 6 minutes and 59 seconds, so it impacted the water significantly earlier than planned. On this flight, SpaceX wasn't trying to catch the booster, but instead performed a controlled splashdown. In terms of visual coverage, because the boost back burn was cut short, it is unlikely SpaceX had any cameras set up in the specific area where the booster eventually impacted the water. Focusing back on the ship, it continued to fire its remaining 5 Raptor engines. Views from inside the engine bay showed the condition of the Raptors in the aft skirt. With one of the vacuum Raptor RVAC engines out, they had to fire the engines longer than normal, with second engine cutoff, SECO, happening at T plus 9 minutes and 23 seconds instead of the planned T plus 8 minutes and 11 seconds. First, the 2 RVAC engines shut off, followed by the sea-level engines which were gimbaling together. Because of the engine issues, SpaceX opted to skip the planned Raptor relight in space and instead proceeded directly to the payload demo. The PZ door was opened, and soon after they started to deploy the satellites. There were 22 deployables in total, 20 Starlink mass simulators and 2 modified Starlink V3 satellites. They modified the deployment to attempt to speed it up from past launches. They also placed cameras on some of the deployables, which provided the first views in space of a Starship from the outside. SpaceX noted that the main goal of these deployable cameras was to gather data on the heat shield and how it held up to this point. The next launch milestone was the start of re-entry. You could see plasma beginning to build up around the vehicle and its heat shield. Similar to other flights, SpaceX pointed out that they were testing a more aggressive entry to stress the vehicle and its limits. Around T plus 55 minutes, they called out engine chill, which is part of the preparation for a relight and the eventual landing burn. A few minutes later, it had reached peak heating and still looked to be in good shape without any visible burn-through as it made its way through the atmosphere. We then saw what SpaceX calls the flap slap, where they point the nose up to stress and fully deploy the aft flaps of the ship. The test only lasted about 30 seconds with the flaps holding up well. It then started its banking maneuver, where it effectively drifts through the atmosphere. This swoop or swing maneuver will be needed in the future when they attempt to catch the ship at the launch site. The ship completed a full turn as it started the belly flop in preparation for the landing burn. At T plus 1 hour, 6 minutes and 8 seconds, it ignited 2 of its Raptor engines. A nearby drone showed it flipping toward the camera before switching to a single engine and slowly splashing down in the ocean. Normally, for the flip maneuver, SpaceX uses 3 engines, but on this flight they wanted to test just 2. They switched back to the drone view, and we saw the ship fall over and explode on impact, concluding Flight 12. Looking back, besides the pre-positioned drone, you can also see multiple buoy cameras positioned right next to the ship during its flip. Based on this, it's clear that despite the early loss of one of the RVAC engines, they were able to extend the burn and put the ship on the right trajectory to accurately land. Pausing on a different frame from the drone, we can also get a good view of the heat shield. On this flight, SpaceX removed a single tile to test some of the surrounding tiles. Despite this, overall from the initial views, the heat shield and vehicle as a whole seem to have held up very well with limited damage. After the launch, SpaceX confirmed the splashdown, and Elon Musk posted, "Congratulations SpaceX team on an epic first Starship V3 launch and landing. You scored a goal for humanity." While the loss of the booster wasn't ideal, in many ways this was the first launch of a brand new rocket. SpaceX successfully gathered a significant amount of data from every part of the flight. For the first time with a V3 variant, SpaceX launched Starship, testing its new engines, internal design, grid fins, launch pad, and more. While the booster's mission was cut short, the upper stage managed to make it all the way to a controlled splashdown in the Indian Ocean. We will have to wait and see how it progresses and the impact it has on the space industry. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this.